Hi, today we'll be looking at more examples of the king as a sword and a shield. In this position we have a passed h-pawn, but it's not away from the black king because it's still in the square. So fortunately for us we have food, okay, and like I talked about, the king as a sword just loves to chop them up and eat them up. So we're going to take all of these pawns and then promote the C pawn. But the problem is that there are two ways to go about it. So to this pawn, it's going to take black 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. And until we have to make a critical decision, we have 1, 2, 3. And here we have to decide whether we go 4, because we're going to take c6, c7, and then finally c4, or do we take c4 first, followed by going to c5, c6, c7, and then promoting our pawn? Well, let's count. So it's going to be 3 moves. So let's just see. So after 3 moves, our king will be on c4 and his king will be on g4. So that means that 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he will be at 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's our move. We have to push the pawn, but it doesn't look like it's gonna do us any good, because after c4, king d4, and our king is on c7. So we're gonna take this pawn. And if instead of c4, then what's gonna happen is that he's gonna do king to c6, but then we'll just do king to d3. Let's see it in action. So king to b2, king to e6, king to a3, king to f5, king to b4, king to g4, and we saw already that king takes c4 is a mistake. King takes h4, king c5, king g5, king takes c6, king f4, king takes c7, king e4, and we're going to catch this pawn. King c6, king d3, the pawn's ours, or if he tries c4, then we just go next to the pawn and it's ours. So obviously that variation doesn't work. We'll have to look at the second one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so our king will be on c5 and his king will be on h4. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he has 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, okay, so that was a little bit complicated. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. He'll be on the F file by the time we are at C7. Okay? And it could be possible that he could be on F6. Or he could, trying to get us to, because after c4, king e5, oh, but that doesn't work. So he'll be on c7 and we'll be on c7 and he'll be on the F file. We have to get back to the pawn. The thing we have to watch out for is that he lands on c6 when we land on c4, because as we've seen before, that's a draw. So we have to avoid that. So let's do it again. King b2, king e6, king a3, king f5, king b4, king g4, king c5, king takes h4, king takes c6, king g5, king takes c7, king f6, and here's what I was talking about. After king c6, then he has king e6, and now it doesn't look like we're actually going to win the pawn. King b5, king d5, and this is a draw, because as we've already talked about, there's a blockade, and after king a4 trying to go the other way around, which is not going to work because of king e4, 2 exclamation marks, and you can see that he just maintains it. So here's what's going to happen. We can't go there, but we can do this and oppose the king. So he has to go somewhere else, like king to f5, but then we oppose him again. He has to move somewhere. We're keeping the blockade. The barrier here is forcing him to move somewhere. So after king f4 or king f6, some attempt at blockading us, then king takes e4, king e5, and then we have king b5, and it's a straightforward path to promotion like we saw in the second video. So that solves the king to f6 variation, but maybe he could try to go for our pawn instead. So then he'll play king to g4, king takes c7, king to f4, king to c6, king to e4, and now we're going to attack his pawn with king c5, but not king b5, king d5 like we saw in the last couple minutes ago. That's a draw because he's opposing our king, but we're going to play king c5. If king e5, king takes c4, and there's no time for the blockade because of king d6, king b5. So he's going to play king to d4, and here this king is acting as a shield for his pawn and also a sword because he's attacking our pawn, but our king can do the same thing. What's interesting is that in these king and pawn endings, when both sides are doing the same thing, the side to move loses, because then that side's going to have to do something different. In this case, because the black king is already the sword and the shield, he can't be both. He has to move, and there's no way for him to be the sword and the shield again. The only way for that to happen would be for king to d4, but obviously that's illegal. So he's going to have to play something like king to d2, and then we win the pawn. So going back to the beginning, we have 2, 4, 6, and there's 2, 3, 4, and then he gets onto the f file. The two moves that he has are king to f6 and king to d4. Those are the two possible variations when our king is on c7. We already saw that when king is on f6, we play king d6. And we saw that when the king is on f4, we simply go back, king c6, king e4, king c5, or king e5, king c5, and it's the same thing as the king f6 variation. So king d4, king c5, king to d3, and he has to play king d3 because we're attacking this pawn, and the only way for him to protect this pawn on c4 is to play king d3. So after king d3, king b4, and he is going to lose because he has to give up his position, the best position. So that was a great example. Here's another one where we have another example of the king as a sword and a shield. First, it's going to act as a shield, and it's going to block the king from getting into the action like we saw in our last video. the one where the king is a shield, not the one where it's a sword. So he's gonna push the pawn because this pawn is blocked. Okay, the pawn on h6 isn't going anywhere. For example, after king to g1 instead of b5, then I could just, let's see. I may be able to just play king to g4 here, and then if b5, then, or actually no, because we're going to queen at the same time. So after king to g1, I'll just play e4, b5, e5, and then if b4, I won't push because then I would be out of the square. Right now I have to get back in the square, so I have to play, for example, I could play king to d2, and then b3, I have to stay in the square. So I wouldn't play this because, as you'll see, this gains time. King to d3, this is what I was talking about. The pawn takes, and then I'll play d6, but then he plays e4, and then if I play something like king to c3, then e3, and these pawns are going to promote. So that would not be very good news. It would be a draw. You want to get out of the pawn's way because it's going to check you along the d4, d3, and d2 squares. So I don't want to play that. I will actually play here king to d1, and then after pawn takes, I can play d6, e4, d7, e3. I can queen now, and he is just too late. e2 check, king takes, b2, and this is as good as done after queen d1, for example. So that's essentially what happens after king g1. It's similar after b5 though. I'll just play e4 before I get in the square by playing king to e2. He plays b3, and now I don't play king to d3 because, as we saw, that's losing, but I play king to d1. I don't even play king to d2. I play king to d1, just getting as far away as possible, but also within the square of the pawn. And then I'll play something like king g3, e5, to try to promote his h-pawn, but that's not going to work because we're one move ahead. So this game is basically over. After, yeah, it's basically over, just like that. Just make sure to stay away from checks. And here we have something that looks like the ready position that we analyzed in the pawn raises video. So white to move, we have to play a4, and he's going to play king to b3, and we'll play a5 just to get away. So here the difference between this position and the ready is that our king is on h2, and in the ready it would have been at h3. So here the king can move to c4 or c3 to get forward, and if it moves to c4 like in the ready video, creating a double threat of capturing the a pawn and threatening promotion, well, we can actually just do this just fine because of our king position. After a6, king d3, a7, f2, queens, we have a skewer on a6, and the reason why this works and not in the ready video is because after black queens, our king is on h3, and that would be check. So he cannot play c4, he plays c3, avoiding the check. Now we can't play a6 because it's the same thing as the ready video. For example, after not king d3 like we saw, but he'll play king d2, and then we have to play king to g1, but then we play king e1, and the game is a draw. Or actually, yeah, it's a draw. So after king to c3, we can't play a6, but we'll play king to g1. threatening to blockade. So he has to play now king to d2, but now we'll just blockade. The game is as good as done. And yeah, I'm not really missing anything here. So that's the king as a blockading. It's basically acting as a, I want to say it's acting as a sword, because it's blockading. It's not going to eat the pawn. And that's it for this video. So if you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to donate. The link is in the description for donating, and I'll see you in the next one.